Hey guys, I'm just going to take you through an everyday, really pretty classic makeup look. So I'm actually starting off by applying Too Faced Born This Way foundation with Real Techniques sponge. Now this sponge is amazing because it actually allows you to blend perfectly and evenly, and you can apply the sponge damp or dry. I'm currently applying it dry actually. So just blending out across the forehead and around the chin, and then of course just a little bit more across the forehead again. So I just really like to make sure that whenever I start a look that the complexion is completely even, and it takes a little bit of time sometimes to just buff out, but it's worth it because then that allows you to create a really nice base for the rest of your makeup look. So that is the Real Techniques makeup sponge that I am using. Really great for blending out for any kind of liquid or powder. Next up is the Cover FX. This is the cream concealer. I'm just dabbing probably about like 3 to 4 dots underneath my eyes. And then I am actually taking the Sigma Beauty Precision Flat Angled P88 brush just to blend and tap that out underneath my eyes. So it's kind of nice to use this brush because you can get really close underneath the lash line and evenly blend out concealer. So just taking it all along the under eye area, and then I'll even take this around the edges of my nose. And also I'm just patting out a little bit of the excess too with the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge, which is amazing. So that's just gonna tap out some excess product. So there is that. Next up, I'm going to go back to my brush. This is the same brush that I was using before for concealer. That's the P88, just dabbing a little bit around my nose and blending out any excess concealer. And then I'm going to take it a little bit around the lips edge, and that's to help diffuse any kind of imperfections or discoloration around my lips. So going back to my favorite new sponge just to finish blending that out further. Cool. All right, a little bit around the chin too. The chin definitely needs some love. That's where I tend to get a little bit more discoloration. So just going back in and locking and setting that. So next up, I'm actually using another favorite brush of mine from Sigma Beauty. This is the Tapered Face F25 brush, and that's a really great brush just to blend out and buff on any powder or even bronzer. It's nice and fluffy and it's tapered and allows you to get right around the edges. The next brush that I'm also using to just set my concealer with, by the way, I've tapped in a little bit into the Tarte Smooth Operator Translucent Setting Powder, and I'm using this brush to tap that in, blend in, and set my concealer. The brush that I'm using is called Soft Blend Concealer F64, so that locks everything in. Next up are the brows, and this is a big one for me because I have no brows, so I really have to groom and shape them. I actually brushed them up with Rouge Bunny Rouge Dual Brows and Lashes Brush 007, and now I'm filling in with Sigma Beauty's eyebrow pencil. I believe the shade is called All Dressed Up. So going in and filling in, and notice that I'm concentrating a little bit more along the arch of my brow, and when I start filling in, I always fill in underneath my brow line. That's going to kind of deliver a little bit more of a natural result and effect, and I'm focusing a little bit more on that outer edge and then blending everything together. So notice I don't fill up a little bit too much in front. It's a little bit more on that outer edge just to kind of create that nice lift and arch. And then of course going back in and blending that out. Look at that before and after. Wow, brows and no brows. Hello. So next side, same thing. I'm actually just going in and using that same Sigma Beauty All Dressed Up brow pencil, filling in and focusing a little bit more along the arch of my brow. And then when I do fill in, once again, I go a little bit underneath the brow first, and then I go back in and using very light keyword, feathery strokes to fill in and feather in the color into my brow. So it's important to kind of take your time with this too, because with brows, you definitely don't want them to look too harsh, and when you fill them in, it is important to kind of focus a little bit more on the outer edge along that arch. That tends to look more natural versus putting too much color in the front of the brow. Once again, just brushing the brows up and around, and also lifting off any extra pigment from the pencil so they are not too dark. Woohoo, ready to go. Brows are on. Okay, so next up I am going in with my blush, and I am such a blush girl. I could not live without blush, and that one is actually going on a little bit too harsh. So what I'm actually using is the new Bling It palette from Tarte Beauty. I love this palette. It's 5 shades total, and a few of them are limited edition, and the other ones are staples. I'm using the shade Fetching in the palette, and that's the deepest berry shade in the palette, and just buffing that up and out. And then I'm going to go in and just kind of buff it a little bit more, and I'm just going to make sure both sides are even. So the application is right at the apple of the cheek and then blending out towards the temples. So there you have it. It's all about blending, and for a nice pretty uplifted cheek, it's important to place your shadow just right on the apple of the cheek and then blend upward and outward. And now for my all-time favorite highlighter. This is from Ilia Beauty. This is Polka Dots and Moonbeams. It's actually a cream liquid, or I should say it's a cream highlighter, and the color is a really pretty white iridescent. It has a little bit of like gold maybe. It's just nice and soft and glowy. Definitely not a lot of shimmer. So that is that, and oops, look at that. I forgot to cover up a blemish. So I'm just going back in with my Cover FX Cream Concealer, taking care of that bad boy. And then I'm going to back in and just going to set with my Amazonian Clay Translucent Powder with my favorite little Sigma Beauty Soft Blend Concealer brush. All right, so complexion is finished. Now I'm moving on to the eyes, and I'm actually using a brush from Rouge Bunny Rouge. The brush is called Large Shader 003, and the color palette that I'm using, and I'm sorry that I actually don't have this up on the screen, is the Laid Bare Eye Palette by Lilo. Now there's actually an assortment of, I think it's like 8 to 9 shades, and they're all very neutral. If you love nudes, you will love this palette. And it's also a mineral based palette, which I love. And it's also a natural and organic brand out of the UK. So I did a nice light shimmery shadow, the mix of the first 2 shades in the palette all over the lid. And now I'm going back into a really pretty chocolatey kind of taupey color, and I'm applying that just right into the outer edges of my crease. And the brush that I'm using to actually pat that in is from Sigma Beauty. That is the Medium Sweeper E54 brush. So I'm tapping that in, and then I'm taking my Sigma Beauty Tapered Blending Brush E35 just to buff that middle tone shade into my crease, the outer edge of my crease. So pretty much that completes it for shadow. This is a daytime look. I am not going overboard with shadow. Now next up with liner, I'm actually using a gel liner from IT Cosmetics. The shade is called Graphite, and it's their Liner Love Gel Eyeliner. And Graphite is nice because it's not completely a black. It's a little bit more of like a charcoal deep gray. And I'm creating a nice classic line and just flicking out just a little bit on the outer edge, creating a very delicate kitten eye effect. Notice that the line should be a little bit thicker on the outer edge of the eye. So I'm going back in and just thickening up a little bit more. And then I'm flicking out just a touch. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other eye, but before I do that, I'm just lining underneath my lashes, so that waterline where it tickles so much to apply liner. So just going back in and making sure that that side is even. And now I'm going to go back into the next eye. Once again, when I apply liner, I feel like it's a little bit easier to start in the middle and then go out and then go back in to the inner corner of my eye. So I'm basically kind of connecting the dots a little bit, going from the middle, then out towards the outer edge, and then of course going back into the inner corner of my eye, just kind of connecting everything there together, making sure the other side is even, of course, and then flicking out the edge just a little bit. So I'm creating like a little baby kitten eyeline effect. Now going underneath the lashes, and this brush that I'm using, by the way, is from MAC. I don't know the name of it. I've had it for years and years and years. It's a nice fine pointed lining brush. I think my brush is like 10 years old. Sorry guys, the number faded out, but I love it, and it's been a makeup staple of mine for so long. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually going in with a dark charcoal gray eyeshadow, the same exact color from the palette from Lily Lolo. It's the Laid Bare Eye Palette. And that shade, I'm basically just gently buffing right above the line that I drew and going back and forth. And what this does, it just kind of helps to diffuse the line that you drew. So it just kind of acts as a buffer. So the line, the gel liner that you draw is not too harsh. So it's a nice little trick to kind of soften the effect of your liner. Going in and curling my lashes with Kevyn Aucoin eyelash curler. This is my favorite eyelash curler. It does not snag or pull at your lashes, which is great, so you don't end up losing any lashes. Now, next up, I actually just bought this mascara. It's actually from Physicians Formula, and it's an organic mascara. And it volumizes, it lifts, and it curls. I have to say, I like this mascara. It's not my favorite one. There's another one that I use from Mineral Fusions that is probably my favorite. I wanted to try something unique and different. And I have to say, it's good, it wears well, but it does take a little while to build up that volume, as you can tell. So I do have to kind of go back in and wiggle the wand and then just kind of recoat and coat and create a little bit more of that volume. So it just takes longer with this one. It's not a bad mascara. It just takes a little bit more time to build that up. So as you can tell, I'm building, building, building. Now I'm going to add just a touch of mascara to the lower lashes. So for a nice, clean, everyday, pretty makeup look, I'm not going to go overboard with mascara on the lower lashes. It's literally just a touch. So it should definitely be less than what you apply to the top lashes. And now I'm just sweeping off anything that may have fallen to the bottom, maybe a little bit of liner in there. And then I am applying on the lips. This is actually from Rouge Bunny Rouge. It's their long-lasting lip pencil. The shade is called Vasco. It's a nice pale pink, really pretty, nice and muted. Really love this. Like the perfect pale pink, and I'm lining from the outer edges, and then I'm just feathering and filling into my lip. And then to close off the look, I'm applying Vapor Beauty, Organic Beauty, I should say, lip gloss in Honor. It's a perfect golden peachy pink to set the look and create a nice polished lip shine. So that is the look. There we go. Fresh, pretty, timeless, everyday classic makeup. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.